in the Eastern hemispheres. His birthday
Okay.
is January 9th.
Okay, very good.
There you go. That looks better.
Okay, so I have to think about this again for a minute. Okay, well, obviously the first thing that stands out to me then is Jupiter on your descendant. Let's go there first. But now I feel like I'm looking at a whole new chart. That's okay. Hmm. Because I can see that faith is a very big part of your life.
Yes.
And so Jupiter immediately stands out to me that he's angular, that you're a witch, that you work with tarot, and also that you had many disagreements with your partner about him being an atheist and you being an omnist. And I'm wondering actually why that caused issues or what that looked like.
Um, Mainly for me, it's a common ground because I feel like even an atheist can appreciate worshiping the planet, like Mother Earth, Gaia, because if you think about it, the planet is kind of our physical God. We would not be alive without it, and if we don't worship it by taking care of it and keeping it from being destroyed with pollution or um, keeping the animal species from going extinct, it'll be the extinction of the human race eventually. You know, humans are like a parasite on Mother Earth, and so that's something that he can relate to. He can like conceptualize that, um, but it's he's atheist agnostic, but he's much more respectful now. Um, we kind of have the similar feeling of you don't have to believe. Like I've been mostly conservative, believe it or not, with my political type beliefs, and he's very liberal. Um, and so we have a lot of uh, things that seem to not match, but I think that that shows how much we love each other because we accept those differences and don't argue about them. It's, we respect each other's autonomy with those types of things, and we still see each other as equals regardless of differences.
But that was like a big part of your relationship, is it? Did I understand correctly? Like you guys
It,
had some
it,
philosophical disagreements to boot.
yeah, initially he was very condescending towards any faith and rejected all faith and said that it was just a crutch for the ignorant and simple-minded. Um,
Hmm.
but and so that was a irreconcilable difference there. And my faith, it kind of grew through our relationship. Like at the point that with my traumatic brain injury and losing my career and my marriage and my having to move from my home state and feeling abandoned by everything, I kind of um, questioned everything that I'd ever been taught and ever believed, and was at a point where I was like, I don't know what I believe anymore. And so I'd kind of gone on a spiritual journey and found all kinds of faith while we were together, while he remained atheist. Um,
Hmm. Okay, that makes me think very much about your Jupiter-Mars conjunction in the seventh house. One of them is like, and just for context, obviously I talk to many different people. Everyone has a different story. Rarely do people center faith and beliefs. That's the first time I hear it, let's say. So it's unique to you, at least for me. So that immediately makes me think about Jupiter that is sitting on your descendant. Because the frame through which you experience that partner is oftentimes about faith and religion and atheism and philosophy. And what do you believe? And the part that he was initially antagonistic makes me think about the Mars conjuncture Jupiter in the seventh house.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
also,
and his sun is conjunct. His sun is in my seventh house.
okay, so there it
And
is.
so
He
with
highlights that.
and so with Vedic sidereal, Jupiter, my seventh house is Sagittarius, and Jupiter in Sagittarius, that's luck with
Uh-huh.
husband. And
Uh-huh.
with him
Okay.
being a Sag sun, like our synastry is it's really good. Um,
The other part of it, the fact that Jupiter is sitting in the sign of Capricorn, because again, I'm just gonna go back to Western. Is that okay with
yeah,
you?
no, yeah, fine.
Okay. Um, the Capricorn part of it for me is that he was a non-believer, meaning because of the earth part of Capricorn, that it's much more earthy, involved with earth and things. Yeah, not really believing in pie in the sky, something you can't see, something you can't touch.
Right. And
So
he
the
has a lot
Capricorn
of
part of it makes me think
Aquarius
about that
too.
initially. Hmm?
He has a lot of Aquarius in his chart as well.
Hmm.
To where that's that logic, like the King of Swords energy, very, very logical, very grounded.
Hmm. In which house is his Aquarius?
Um, I'm gonna have to think about between his Vedic chart and his Western chart now. His his rising, he's a aqua rising
In Vedic or in
in
Western?
Western.
Good. Okay. What does he do for work?
He is a manager of insurance adjusters for 18-wheeler claims. So he's very
Okay.
very detail oriented. He's got a brilliant mind. He's as far as mathematics and accounting, and he's got a Cancer moon in Vedic and a Leo moon in Western, and so he can
Uh-huh. Does he have
people.
Taurus in Western?
I'm trying to think his north node. We both have the same north node, south node, Taurus,
Because
Scorpio.
when you say 18 wheelers, I immediately think those are huge machines.
Yes.
Am I right? So that makes me think about Taurus. Um, the other part of it, I immediately think about the eighth house with him because he's an insurance adjuster.
And his midheaven is Scorpio, I believe.
Right, that would make sense because his rising is Aquarius. Do you know if he has anything in the eighth house?
Let me see. I have to look at his chart. I mainly focus on his inner planets. Um, I look at so many charts. Let me see. I've got,
And I also hear Libra, by the way, because him being a brilliant mathematician.
yeah, let me pull up. My apologies. Hold on, I'm trying to get his chart. Let me change the settings to Western. Okay. Yeah, for him, he has his is just Taurus North Node. Um, his eighth house would be his moon
Hmm.
in Leo moon.
Okay, that also makes sense from the standpoint that he doesn't have kids of his own. He has your kids.
Right.
So that makes me think about the moon in his eighth house also. Do you see the logic or not really?
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, I just know his infertility was discovered when he had a
Oh,
football
he's
injury.
infertile.
It was a football injury when he was 12. He had a hernia surgery, and they told him at that time that if he did not have a procedure done to um, correct the blood flow, that he could be fertile, but he would need something to correct the blood flow because it was too strong, which was like
Uh-huh.
immediately killing his sperm as it's being made. But his parents chose to leave that uncorrected.
Okay, that makes me think about the moon in Leo as well. The blood flow being very strong, Leo. Does he have Saturn aspecting his moon or his fifth house?
Let me see. I have Saturn in my fifth house.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see. His Saturn is in Scorpio, so it would be
Okay,
his.
so squaring his moon.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That would make sense that he's infertile. You said the injury was to what part of his body?
It was a, what do you call it? It was a hernia, um, like whenever he would run, it was very painful in his groin area. So that's where the
Aha,
hernia
there's a
was.
Scorpio.
Mhm.
Okay, so do you make that connection then?
Yes.
Okay,
And
good.
with me, I have Scorpio is I have lots of Scorpio placements in all three different types of astrology.
Hmm.
And whenever he came back into my life, um, I was quite ill, and found out I had cervical cancer.
Okay, there is your sun Saturn in Scorpio.
Mhm. We caught it
Hmm.
very early, but it was thankful to him,
Why? Why him?
because of my disability status, and my I don't drive anymore because I have chronic migraines and some visual disturbances and muscle spasms and agoraphobia and panic disorder, those types of things. Driving is it can be dangerous for me because I can get in the car and get going somewhere and then become very ill and have to I'll be stranded on the side of the road with a migraine. So it's not safe all the time for me to drive. So he, and also with
Uh-huh.
women, the symptoms of cervical cancer for me were extremely excessive bleeding, and at my age, at the time 39 years old, you get dismissed a lot with, oh, you're just going through perimenopause, and I was like,
Hmm.
no, menopause is when you stop bleeding or have infrequent bleeding. I'm bleeding for 30 days at a time, and I had to
Hmm.
really, I just got dismissed a lot. And he was like, something's wrong. I'm taking you to a different doctor. And then that's when they found it.
Hmm. Okay, the fact that you've dealt with so many health issues and ongoing, because you said besides the cervical cancer, you've had a traumatic brain injury, which impacts your ability to live, essentially. So I guess you're also energetically limited. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yeah, I could say that it opened my crown at the same time. It was kind of like the
Hmm.
universe drop kicked me out of my life because I used to be I have a doctorate degree. I used to be a pharmacist. And
Mm.
the injury was a freak accident that actually happened at work. And I forgot my own last name, um, and then lost all emotional connection with everyone that I'd met after, um, say, 2005, I guess.
What do
Um,
you mean you lost? How?
I everyone was a stranger except for my children and my blood relatives and people that I knew from childhood and my teen years. Like the people that were in my life at the time, I felt like complete strangers. It was strange. Like it's something that happens commonly amongst people with traumatic brain injuries and PTSD. But
Hmm.
I think it was mostly my life being it wasn't in alignment with my life purpose. And so I had to go through that loss to find my purpose. And so it was a very traumatic way to find yourself, but I'm thankful for it.
Okay. That one's a little distant for me still, but the bleeding, the excessive bleeding makes me think about your Sun, Saturn, Pluto conjunction in Scorpio. Also, the fact that I guess you're limited from a lot of the things that you can do, and you're basically a handicap status, right? Like you're a what do they call it when you're
I'm in the process of getting approved for disability with Social
disability, right?
Security. Yeah. Whenever I used to be a pharmacist, like I said, and then when I realized I was not, I couldn't handle the high level stress of being a pharmacist, much less I didn't feel like my memory was to be trusted and my income and lifestyle was not as important as patient safety. And so I surrendered my license and took a job making $15 an hour doing intake interviews for a disability firm. Um, and that was the most fulfilling job I'd ever had. It was because with my pharmacy background and my personal struggles with disability, I could recognize people that actually needed help getting approved for disability. And then I had some issues with insurance coverage of all the medications that I needed. They kept denying coverage, even though through workers' comp I had coverage. But then with the job, they denied coverage of my very expensive migraine injection preventions that I need, and also my antidepressant that was about $400 a month without coverage. I couldn't afford it on making $15 an hour. And so my mental health and physical health rapidly declined. They watched me go from being able to work 40 hours a week on my medications to with insurance denials. I ended up being unemployable, and my working for a disability representation firm, whenever they say you're too disabled for work, let me take your case, it's pretty much, you can't get any more confirmation than that. I'm limited, and Social Security has admitted in writing that I'm limited to a maximum of part-time employment. But that's just the first denial that they do for everyone that's under 50 that's applying based on mental health and migraines. They try to push it out as long as possible. But I've already tried part-time work, and with part-time work, there's no health insurance coverage. And without my mental health medications and migraine preventative medications, I'm unemployable.
Hmm.
Because in the United States, if you're going to unpredictably but consistently call out of work 3 or 4 days every month, you're considered unemployable, because nobody's going to keep an employee on that can't predict what 4 days they're going to miss every month, but they're definitely going to miss at least 3 or 4 days every month.
Okay, and that's what was happening with you.
Yes.
Okay. So you basically depend on medication, right, to get by in life now.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, there's a few things. So the fifth house is a little bit cloudy for me still, but everything that you're talking about in your life makes me think very much about the Sun Saturn conjunction. Because you started with talking about how you were raised by narcissists, also your grandmother, so your whole life was kind of Sun Saturn.
Yes.
And then you worked what was your job again now?
Oh, I stay home now, but I've worked in pharmacy from age 18 as a technician all the way through school. That was the only career that I had. And then I was a pharmacy student, and then I was a pharmacist. And then the
Okay, so what
injury
does a
happened.
pharmacist do exactly? Because I don't know.
Oh, a pharmacist is someone that it's a doctorate professional healthcare degree. We dispense medications. And what I was doing at the time of the injury is I worked for a home health, home infusion pharmacy where I made IVs for people that were on IV infusions at home.
Uh-huh.
And
Okay.
so any slight error, miscalculation, could kill someone. It was,
Okay. Yes, that's the information I was looking for. Thank you. Okay. So, okay, there's the Sun Saturn.
mhm,
Any little error that you make
was life-threatening.
was life-threatening. So that means that you have to be very exact. It's a very
Yes.
high expectation, high regulation work. That's Sun Saturn. But notice that you said specifically that you worked with IV injections. That's the Scorpio because it's an injection, like the
Hmm.
tail of the scorpion. And it's water, it's fluids. So there's the Scorpio. So here is your work that you did as a pharmacist. Does that
Hmm.
make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Besides everything else. Um, okay, so then now you can't drive, you can't, so does that mean your husband is the one to help you get around?
Yes, he provides transportation for me. I can't. My daughter is 16 years old and has her driver's license now, and she drives me around places. And like if I drop her, I can drop her and her brother. I can ride while she drives to her father's house, and drop her and her brother off, and then I can make it back home in my car by myself. But by the time I'm home, I'm having chest pains from the anxiety. Um, because if I have another head injury, I'm terrified I'll be a potato, if that makes sense.
Okay,
Um,
that also makes me think about Sun Saturn. Because
yeah,
think
I've
about it,
had,
every day of your life you live with a tremendous caution.
yes, I have had five head, neck, and spinal cord injuries from serious accidents in my life,
Head, neck, and spinal cord.
including the first being my birth. The doctor used forceps.
I don't know
And
what that is.
whenever you're being vaginally delivered and you get stuck, they use these metal clamps to stick in, grab you by your head, and yank you out.
Okay. So even from the beginning.
Yes, and then I had some like I was in one particular car accident. It was a 100-mile-an-hour car accident. I was a passenger, and the car flipped and landed on its roof, and I got thrown in the back seat by the airbag, had broken bones, all those things. Um, and then another accident, I was stopped waiting for people in front of me to turn left into a neighborhood. And the sun was setting in front of me. And so the person behind me didn't see the car stopped. And he hit me from behind going 40 miles an hour and broke the axle on my car. And that gave me some pretty serious neck problems, head, neck,
Okay,
spinal cord.
here we go. Now that makes me think about your moon in Taurus, the neck problems. And in the 11th house makes me think about the fact that these injuries that you got were when you were out in public.
Hmm.
And even the Taurus part of it makes me think about you being in the car so that you're totally stationary. It's like you can't move, you can't get out, you're totally fixed in place.
Yeah, and I have
So
lots of
that
claustrophobia as well. That's something that I freak out about. And after that 100-mile-an-hour car accident that I was in, if I had been wearing my seatbelt, the part of the car the front passenger seat was that part of the car was completely crushed. So if I had been wearing my seatbelt, I would be paralyzed or dead. And so I had extreme fear about wearing seatbelts in vehicles for a long time because seatbelts can actually kill just as many people as they save if you really look at the statistics. But by law, you have to wear them in most states in the
Uh-huh.
country. And so it's a restriction that really, I have a bit of autism as well, a sensory processing disorder, hypersensitivity to light and sound and textures and that type of thing. And so being confined in any way is very, very disturbing. And a seatbelt is, and especially I'm 4'11". I don't know if that converts in your measurements, but I'm about the size of a 12-year-old child as far as height goes. I stopped growing when I was 12.
Uh-huh.
And so
That
a
also makes me think
seatbelt
about Sun
comes
Saturn.
across my neck in the car. Like where an adult is supposed to go across your chest, with me, I'm so short, it's coming up here.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. Um, okay, that brings me to an interesting okay, I'm gonna come back to that question. I just keep sitting with this, so I need to point it out, otherwise I'm gonna freak out. Mars being in your seventh house.
Hmm.
And that makes me think about how your husband and your children are the ones to help you get around. So you don't really do things by yourself if you're gonna go out. You need someone to accompany you. And so I guess you're doing things in tandem with other people more
Yes,
frequently than not.
yes, which is something that has been my greatest fear my whole life is to have to depend on others for anything. And
Uh-huh.
now I need it. And I have to admit there's things that I can't do. Like whenever I go out in public, I can get with my mystic psychic abilities, I can see other people's auras and I can feel other people's energy, and it really affects me. And so, in public places, like say if I go to a restaurant with my children and have a meal, I may have to get up and go outside and cry and pet a tree for like 3 or 4 times just because of the people around me. Like if people are drinking alcohol around me, I get really uncomfortable, especially if there's people that have an addiction to alcohol. Like I can feel their demons, I guess you could say. Um,
Uh-huh.
so
Okay,
I have
that's
to protect
bringing me
myself.
again to your Jupiter on the cusp of your seventh house. This part that you can feel people so much and their energies. Um, and again, that you have such a hard time just existing. Makes me think about your Sun Saturn conjunction, especially. I like this example that you used about being out at the restaurant because that makes me think about the moon in Taurus in your 11th house. Like you're out in public having a meal.
Which I
But it's
used to be
supposing,
able to walk into any building, shop, store, restaurant, bar, and felt like I owned the place, and I had no fear whatsoever. But after the
mm,
injury, it was it was like completely. I'm a different person.
hmm okay. The fact that you own the place makes me think about, of course, your moon in Taurus in the 11th, being so comfortable when you go out in the bar, whatever. Trining your Jupiter on the cusp of the 7th, I guess you felt confident interacting with other people also.
Oh yeah.
Um, and so then this is what I see now is like this triangle formation that you're talking about, because the Sun Saturn for me is that like you feel the people's energies and you need to go outside and cry because it's just too much. The
I have to
Jupiter part
ground
of it
in nature.
specifically that you're tapped into other people and that you immediately pick up information about them.
Mhm.
And the moon in the 11th is that this happens when you're out in public. So now this is starting to slowly come out a little bit. Now, because this is happening in your fifth house, I actually want to turn our attention to what is it like relating to your kids, like being a mom?
Um, that's something that has been a challenge with, of course, me losing my father at age 3. Well, I mean, he didn't pass away when I was 3. He just passed away this year. But he became severely, he joined the Air Force and then came home. They discharged him with schizophrenia. And he was just, you couldn't, he was dangerous to himself and others. And so got isolated from my father starting at age 3. But he and I have always had a very deep emotional connection, and we were, I was always safe in his presence. But his
Oh,
mental health would vary widely. And then with my mother's, her second marriage.
wait, sorry, before you go on, I just want to
Oh,
pause because you said something very interesting.
mhm.
'Cause you said it happened at age 3, right?
But by the time I was 3, it was, me and my sister were starting to stay at my grandparents because my mother was afraid of my father.
Okay, so those first 3 years were tumultuous big time with your father.
Mhm.
And then
He had a,
at
he
3
was,
is when the
yeah.
Hmm?
He had, with schizophrenia, you can have a normal childhood and then onset can hit in late teens, early 20s. And also my mother was 15 years old when she got pregnant with me. And I was born when she was 16, and my father was 20 years
Mm-hmm.
old when I was born. And so he didn't have schizophrenia, but then he had that onset, I think, triggered by joining the military. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then they sent him home, and he started drinking to cope with his mental illness. And that drinking and schizophrenia is one of the worst things you can do for
Okay.
children.
Mm-hmm. Um, so just notice that your sun is at 15 degrees and your Saturn is at 18 degrees. Now the sun and Saturn are both typically significators for the dad for different reasons. But at 3 years old would be when your solar arc directed sun or even your progressed sun would make the exact conjunction to your Saturn. So think about it, that entire period, they're already conjunct, but at 3 is when the exact conjunction takes place if we direct your chart. So that makes me think about it. 3 is when you finally had the separation take place. But even before then, like the entire period was tumultuous.
Mhm. It was. It was because it was teen parents, back then in the 80s, if a girl turned up pregnant in her teens, the answer in my community, Christian community, was you must get married. It wasn't um, put the child up for adoption, or, you don't get married and you just co-parent, that type of thing. It was, you must get married to cover up the family shame, you know. And so that's part of my grandmother's narcissistic abuse with me, is that I was the living, breathing, walking reminder of the family shame, because they were they're professional musicians in church. And so she played the piano every Sunday, and led the
Mhm.
choir. And my grandfather was at the pulpit and led the singing in church. And so they were very important church figures. And then their daughter is having a child at 16, so there was a lot of resentment there for me. From my
Mhm.
grandmother. And there was a lot of pressure on that I put on myself um, to prove myself worthy, because a child conceived out of wedlock is considered like half demon. Um,
Oh, okay. Hmm.
yeah, if that makes sense in some kind of in Christianity down here. Um,
Okay, this
and
this is totally okay.
does that make sense?
Yes, of course. Can I say, or you can keep going. There's so much coming up for me now.
Yeah, no, you tell me because I'll talk forever.
Okay. Um, First of all, it's the Sun Saturn. You're half demon. And so you put so much pressure on yourself your whole life just to be accepted for who you are. So for me, that you had this bane over you makes me think about Sun Saturn very much. You always feel like you're unwelcome, even just by existing the way you exist.
Exactly.
There's the Pluto part I want to bring in, but it's a little less formed. That just because Pluto is a generational planet, so that makes me think about being born as a teen pregnancy during those times when it was kind of taboo to do it that way. So the
Yes.
Pluto is kind of coming in, but not fully just yet. So I'm going to take him out, but I have to mention him, otherwise I'd be remiss not to. The most important part for me here is Jupiter sitting on your descendant, because you grew up in a very Christian family where they were big figures in the church, and they were huge in the music. So that makes me think about, if I just take the Sun Saturn out, even though it's all relevant, is your moon in Taurus in the 11th connected to Jupiter? Taurus being the music, and the 11th house being that they're a big part of the community, and they're a big part of the Christian faith community, Jupiter specifically. And so that tells me that, of course, you grew up around the Bible, the hymnals, the church, and all of the church language. So whoever you were relating to inevitably was also a Christian person in some shape or form. And also the fact that this is your grandparents we're talking about. So there's the Capricorn, Jupiter in Capricorn on your descendant.
Mhm.
Your grandparents in the church were a big part of your story. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Okay. Um,
And then I had like like with me being separated from my parents with that Sun, Saturn, Pluto in my fifth house. I feel like that had to do with the separation with my family in my childhood. And then it repeated during COVID with my divorce with my husband. He used the divorce and the COVID epidemic lockdown as an excuse to keep my children from me during that whole time because he was afraid I
okay.
was going to infect them. And so I don't know if you've ever seen
Mm,
the Disney movie Dumbo.
no.
Oh, okay. Well, it won't make sense to you, but it's about an elephant that goes mad trying to protect her baby elephant, and she ends up getting locked up, and the baby elephant gets taken away from the mother. But they end up getting reunited at the end, and she gets locked up, and there's a sign on her cage, it's Mad Elephant, but all she was trying to do was trying to protect her baby because they were in a circus.
Ah,
So they were
so that
performing
happened during
elephants.
lockdown, is it?
Um, yeah, they've recently made a new live action version of that Dumbo movie. So I used to watch it as a child, and it was like predicting my future. It's crazy.
Ah. Okay. Well, that makes me think about Sun Saturn in your fifth house, obviously. You didn't have access to your children, and every day you wanted to just get your babies back. And even the fact that it's the fifth house just makes me think about Dumbo being a kids show, like a kids
Mhm.
movie. And it's entertainment, but ultimately it was prefacing something to come. That's so deep, kind of, and so unsettling. Sun, Saturn, fifth house. But here's what stands out to me. Okay. Your kids were so what was it? It was like court mandated, I guess.
It was with I had that head injury, and so he used that against me as they had me on 13 different medications and all types of things, and he was actually when he realized I wasn't going to make six figures anymore, he decided that our relationship, he was going to divorce me and try to take my medical settlement
Oh,
and
one
keep
second. What year was that?
2019.
Okay. So 2019, he wanted to divorce you and take your medical settlement. Is that right?
Yes, he filed for divorce and got a restraining order against me to where I could not see my children because of my head injury and being on all the medication that I was on. I did have a suicide attempt because I was fighting workers' comp during all this time after the head injury. And there was a point that whenever I realized that I was never going to be, a pharmacist again, and that my husband was with me because of I was his golden ticket as far as I was able to provide the lifestyle and the finances that he wanted. That's why he stayed with me all those years. It wasn't true
Blech.
love. And
Okay.
so, and he's a Taurus sun, very materialistic.
Uh-huh. Okay, so uh-huh. Okay. Did that happen around like July of 2019?
That was my suicide attempt. Was July 2nd,
July
2019.
2nd.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes very good sense. Okay, so here's a few things. First of all, obviously Saturn is transiting your seventh house in 2019 and sextiling exact your Sun and Saturn in the fifth house. So obviously this makes me think about having big issues with your husband who's now filing for a divorce and getting a restraining order and making big issues for you. Saturn in the seventh, to the extent that he wants to take your children away. Sun, Saturn in the
Yeah.
fifth. Do you see the connection there?
Yeah, and he had a life insurance policy on me too. It's like he wanted me to just take myself out so he could get paid.
Okay. That makes me think about Jupiter sitting on your descendant. The life insurance policy, like
Mhm.
he would eventually get paid out. So that makes me think about Jupiter on the cusp of your seventh house. He's the one to benefit from you big time. And so
Yeah.
Saturn transiting that Jupiter makes me think about how you found out, oh yeah, he has a life insurance policy. He just wants to, I'm his golden ticket, and that's that. So that makes me think about that side of Jupiter. Does that make
Yeah,
sense so far?
it does. Yeah.
Okay. Then I'm on the transits for July 2nd of 2019. The transiting sun is sitting exactly on your ascendant.
Mhm.
Yeah, does that make sense? That's the day you tried to kill yourself?
It does. My car got
Okay.
repossessed that day, and because I couldn't remember to make the pay, I only had 6 payments left on this car. I had already been financing. I bought it brand new, and I'd been financing it for 5 years, and I had 6 payments left, and I missed 2 payments, and um, came and we just got back home from a funeral out of state from one of my husband's relatives that passed away, and
Okay.
came back home, and I'm taken off work by my doctors, and we're struggling desperately with finances. Because workers' compensation, um, the limits in my state were the amount they were giving me per week was what I made in one day, and so it was barely covering my mortgage, and I was the breadwinner. So it was a very bad financial situation. So we were going to lose everything. And I thought that everyone was just better off if I was gone, that kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
And so that's what he
Okay.
used as saying that I was an unfit mother to get the restraining order against me and all those things.
Okay. So there is Saturn aspecting your sun exact during that period,
Hmm.
from the seventh house to the fifth. Your husband getting a restraining order and trying to take your children away and calling you an unfit mother. Does that all make sense
It does.
about that period? Okay. The other part, the fact that the sun rules your second house, makes me think about you being in dire straits financially at the time. So again, Saturn to the sun. Secondly. Third, notice what you said. At that time, you had just come back from a funeral for one of your husband's relatives. So just notice the sun at that time would have been in the 12th house, Cancer. Yeah? So that makes me think about the ending, someone being buried, the 12th house, and its
Hmm.
family, Cancer. And it's specifically someone from your husband's family. The
Right.
sun transiting was applying an opposition to Jupiter on your seventh.
Hmm.
So there's the connection there. Now, the next part, that your car got repossessed and that this was like the big, most challenging period for you. And the reason I picked out July specifically is because at that time, the sun transiting your first house was opposing Saturn in your seventh the whole time. So that for me, of course, July is when things would have had to come to a head.
Hmm.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Okay. Hmm. And then there's something else that stood out to me, actually, many things, but it's about your sixth house. Uranus, Venus, Neptune. First of all, it's when you said that you were on 13 different medications. That makes me think about Sagittarius. The centaur like running so fast. So that makes me think one, two, three, four, 13 medications.
Yeah. I was trying to force my body to function at the level prior to the injury, just out of determination to keep my lifestyle and my family. Um, and just being a pharmacist, you trust doctors and medication and really believe that if you take your medicine, it'll get better. But my injury, I didn't, I was in denial that I was incurable. You know, my injuries were permanent. It was permanent damage.
Okay. That makes me think about Uranus in your sixth house. That you had an event that was life-changing health-wise, and from that point forward, you're never the same. And also, I'm thinking about the traumatic brain injury. That for me is very Uranus. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it was definitely my brain was, you know, it was my livelihood. You know, pharmacy work is, I mean, making IVs is it's not really too physical. It's mainly mental work, and me not having my mind to be able to do what I normally did was very traumatic.
Uh-huh. Okay. So there was a sudden change. So when was the injury?
February of 2018. Yes, February 2018. We lost
So like,
connection for a moment there.
okay, now I can see you.
Okay.
Can, can you hear me again?
Yes.
Okay. Just one last question. When was the injury?
February 2018. February 12th, I believe. I think around it's the beginning of February.
Uh-huh. Beginning of February.
And that was actually the same day,
Uh-huh.
or the anniversary of that 100-mile-an-hour car accident I was in back when I was 15. So it's
Oh,
like
that was when you were
February.
15. And sorry, just a quick clarifying question. How did that traumatic brain injury happen?
A 6-foot metal beam fell on my head in the warehouse.
Oh, how nice. Fell on your head
Yes,
in
straight
the
down the middle.
warehouse.
We had a new
Okay.
annex added, and it was under construction. And instead of hiring contractors to put together some industrial shelving, my boss had me and a technician assembling things that we had no business assembling without hard hats. And my coworker, my technician, didn't follow OSHA guidelines and had some metal beams leaned up against the wall, and they got off balance and fell on my head.
Okay. So it's Uranus and Aries in your 10th house at that time, making an almost exact square to your Mars in the seventh. So Mars in the seventh for me is your coworker. And the
Mhm.
square with Uranus is that he's not following OSHA guidelines. And the 10th is that this event is happening at work. And the Aries part of it for me is that you were hit over the head. And that it was heavy steel beams makes me think about Uranus. And obviously that you
Mhm.
had a massive injury makes me think about Mars. And specifically that that injury was caused by accident by your coworker.
Mhm.
And also because you said that things were under construction, that makes me think about the much longer period Pluto in Capricorn, conjuncture Mars. Capricorn being the construction, and Pluto that it's a long-term project, it's not something that happens quickly.
Right.
And so there's these two. And then obviously there's well,
And the coworker that the accident happened with was actually my favorite coworker, so it was really bad. He felt horrible about it, but it was a mistake. It was an accident.
Okay. And the other thing that makes me think about is just that in June of 2018 is when Uranus entered Taurus for the first time, and therefore began the conjunction with your moon. So the fact that this happened in February makes me think about how this made you change your life forever. So there I feel the oncoming conjunction from Uranus to your moon and all of the changes you would have had to go through thereafter, including the separation from your husband and the issue with your kids that
Yeah,
would
that's
follow.
about the time that I started realizing that I had all the injectable drugs that I would needed walking past every day at work that I could have used to take my own life. That's about the time I started realizing that I had some serious problems, and I was just in denial, trying to hide it,
Oh,
to try
that
to
makes me
keep.
think about Uranus opposing your Pluto in Scorpio. You're around all of these injectables that you can use to kill yourself. Ooh, so you're thinking about it. Very dark.
Every day. Yeah.
Okay, so there's Uranus transiting your moon opposite Pluto. Every day you're thinking about killing yourself with injectables.
When my job is to
Very
save
disturbing
people.
internally. Huh?
Yes. And my job was to save people with injectables, and
Uh-huh.
but because of my knowledge, I knew exactly what I could have done, and so I was having to fight that every day.
Okay, good. Let's pause here for today because we went a little overtime. No problem for me, but still I want to. Um, okay. Did that all make sense? What we did, what
It,
we were doing?
it did. It absolutely did. Thank you for that. It really, that's why I got into astrology, is because I was like, I've got to understand why these things are happening, because otherwise it didn't make any sense. And you
Okay.
really clarified a lot of things. Thank you so much.
Okay. So that was pretty new for you, right? The way we were looking at the chart.
I haven't had anybody go back with those transits during that time and talk with me, because I've really been like now forward with everything. I didn't know anything about astrology with the head before the head injury, um, and
Mm-hmm.
so it was completely, you know, if you know, uncharted territory. I didn't know anything about it, and like I said, I've never had anybody go back to that time frame and show me the transits that were influencing everything that was going on. It makes perfect sense.
Very
It
good.
really does.
Um, Look, what always comes up for me is how much there is to talk about every time we get into the chart, obviously, because it's your whole life. So there's innumerable things to learn. I have an idea, which is to meet a second time and do like a part two.
Okay.
Therefore, if somebody wants to go more into the story of Amanda and go a little deeper and keep learning astrology by staying with one person, they can do that. Are you open to that?
I am, definitely.
Okay, very good. Um, well, you can schedule a meeting for whenever you want then, and we can do the second part, even tomorrow if you like.
Okay. Yeah, the portal's coming up, so I'm going to be channeling a lot of with my tarot and stuff. And I have a long distance Reiki um, tomorrow morning, I believe. Um, let's see, the 13th is always a good day for me, but I think that's the weekend. I don't know if you're available on weekends.
I'm always available. Look, I'll just send you my calendar link again, and you can just whenever is comfortable for you, it's totally good for me.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Oh,
Probably the 13th around the same time. I'm my best between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. So
oh, perfect. That works very well for me. Good.
awesome.
Okay. Well, very nice to meet you, Amanda. Thank you so much. Also for sharing so openly. Um, yeah. That was great.
Yeah, I'm
Thanks.
very impressed. Your knowledge is quite expansive and very intuitive and enlightening. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I've enjoyed it immensely.
Yeah. Sure. Okay, good. So see you next time.
All right, thanks. Bye.
All right. Bye, Amanda. Stop recording.